So, all right, we're back and we're going to do a couple sutras before it's time to go to work today. All right, we're on sutra number 4, and avidya, or also known as ignorance, is the cause of all the other obstructions, whether they be latent, in process of elimination, overcome, or in full operation. The comprehensiveness of this sutra is the first thing which attracts one's attention. It carries one in thought to the root cause of all evil, and in its reference to the obstructions covers all possible conditions of their being. This verse sums up the condition of every man from the savage stage up through all intervening conditions to the state of arhatship, in which the final fetters of ignorance are cast off. It states that the reason evil exists and the reason selfishness and personal desires of any kind are evident is found in the great basic condition, which is the limitation of form itself, avidya, or ignorance. And again, this is covering all obstructions, whether they be latent, in process of elimination, overcome, or in full expression or full operation. The aspirant is reminded right at the beginning of his investigation into the laws of spiritual unfoldment that 2 factors must be taken into account, which are based on the facts of manifestation itself. The fact of the not-self, towards which the divine points of spiritual life are attracted, and which in the period of evolution absorbs them. Two factors must be taken into account, which are based on the fact of manifestation itself. The fact of the not-self, towards which the divine points of spiritual life are attracted, and which in the period of evolution absorbs them. And 2, the fact of the limitations which form taking necessitates. The above 2 factors must be recognized as true of the solar logos, the planetary logos, a man, or an atom. Every form of divine life, the infinitesimally small and the infinitely great, veils or hides a fraction of spiritual energy. The result to the point of spiritual existence is necessarily a shutting in, a cutting off, and the circumscribing of itself, and only the contacts of existence itself and the struggle of the spiritual unit within the form can bring about eventual release. Now, this is pretty complex here. Let's see, I'm going to have to read this again. The result to the point of spiritual existence is necessarily a shutting in, a cutting off, and a circumscribing of itself, and only the contacts of existence itself and the struggle of the spiritual unit within the form, and only the contacts of existence itself and the struggle of the spiritual unit within the form can bring about eventual release. Let's think of the implications of that for a second. Right? For the time being, and during the process of incarnation, the veiled point of life remains in ignorance of that which lies outside of itself and progressively has to fight its way out to ever-increasing freedom and liberty. And I think we can all relate to that. First, the sphere of its own form is the sole thing it is aware of, and it remains in ignorance of all outside of itself. The contacts brought about by desire are the factors whereby ignorance works out into knowledge, and the man, for we will only consider the human unit in this connection, though the basic law holds good for all forms of divine life, gradually becomes aware of himself as he is and conscious of his environment. As this environment is triple, physical, astral, and mental, and as he has three vehicles whereby he can contact the three worlds, the period covered in this awakening is immense. The old commentary says in this connection, in the hall of ignorance, the triple sheaths are known, the solar life at its densest point is contacted, and man emerges fully human. Then the man becomes aware of something else, the group to which he belongs. And he does this through a finding of his own inner reality as latent in his personality. He learns that he, the human atom, is a part of a group or center in the body of a heavenly man, a planetary logos, and that he must develop full awareness of his group vibration, his group purpose, and his group center. This is the stage of the probationary path, or the path of discipleship up to the third initiation, and the old commentary proceeds. Within the hall of learning, the central mystery is contacted, the method of release is seen, the law is well fulfilled, and man emerges well nigh adept. Finally, the man enters the hall of wisdom, to which he was admitted occasionally and with increasing frequency after the first great initiation, and learns of the place his group holds in the planetary plan, catching a glimpse also of the cosmic scheme. Ignorance, as we understand the term, is, of course, negated, but it cannot be too frequently emphasized that there remains much unknown even to the adept, and that the Christ himself, the great world teacher, knows not all that is the content of the awareness of the King of the world. The Yoga Sutras of Patanjali only deal, however, with the overcoming of the ignorance which holds a man upon the wheel of rebirth, which prevents him unfolding the true powers of the soul. The old commentary says, in connection with this final stage, within the hall of wisdom, light fully shines upon the adept's way. He knows and sees the seventh part and visions all the rest. He is himself a septonate, and from this hall emerges God. And if you haven't heard the word septonate, I want to say it was introduced probably to me in the Secret Doctrine, but it just is we're essentially talking about the seven centers, or the seven planes of the solar system, the constitution of man, and the seven rays, as they are. So very, very important here. This should give us much to settle into, I guess. This should illuminate the fact and need for the reaching into the subtle. I don't have the right words, I don't think. To practice beingness and to register this group vibration and group purpose and center. The need to be quiet, I guess we could say. All right, let's go on to number 5 here. Avidya is the condition of confusing the permanent, pure, blissful, and the self with that which is impermanent, impure, painful, and the not self. And, you know, if we read Glamour, it's a lot like, sounds a lot like Maya. This condition of ignorance, or the state of avidya, is characteristic of all those who as yet do not discriminate between the real and unreal, between death and immortality, and between light and darkness. It governs, therefore, life in the 3 worlds, where the correspondence between avidya on the physical plane is experienced by man, and incarnation is to be found on all planes. It is a limitation of spirit itself and a necessary corollary of form taking. The spiritual unit is born blind and senseless. It comes into form at the beginning of the ages and cycles of rebirth in a state of total unawareness. It has to become aware of that which is around it. To do this, it has to first develop the senses, whereby contact and awareness become possible. The method and process through which the human being has evolved 5 senses or avenues of approach to the not self are well known, and any standard psychological textbook can supply the needed information. 3 factors must be borne in mind in connection with the spiritual unit. 1, the senses have to be evolved. 2, their recognition and use must follow. And 3, a period succeeds wherein the spiritual man utilizes the senses in the fulfillment of his desire, and in so doing identifies himself with his apparatus of manifestation. And as we know, when we're many are identified with the form or the body, and because they are currently at one with it, essentially, right? This is a process of moving from one at-one-ment to the next, and this shows that there is the at-one-ment with the body and the seeking and fulfilling of desire. He is doubly blind, for he is not only born blind and senseless, but he is mentally blinded also, and does not see himself or things as they are, but makes the mistake of regarding himself as the material form, and this he does for many cycles. He has no sense of values or of proportion, but looks upon the transient, suffering, unclean, material lower man, his 3 sheets in their totality, as himself, the reality. He cannot disassociate himself from his forms. The senses are part of the forms. They are not the spiritual man, the dweller in the form. They are part of the not self and the medium of its contact with the planetary not self. And I think we should all be able to, to recognize this for sure. This is, we come in as we're born, as we take a new, or I would say born, as we come in, we are blind, deaf, dumb, and blind. But through discrimination and dispassion, the self, who is permanent, pure, and blissful, can eventually dissociate itself from the not self, which is impermanent, impure, and full of pain. When this is not realized, the man is in a condition of avidya. When it is in process of accomplishment, the man is a follower of vidya or knowledge, a fourfold path. When the soul is known as it is, and the not-self is relegated to its rightful place as a sheath, vehicle, or implement, then knowledge itself is transcended and the knower stands alone. This is liberation and the goal. Surely. All right, number 6. The sense of personality is due to the identification of the knower with the instrument of knowledge. This verse is the commentary upon the previous one. The student should remember that the knower, the spiritual man, has various instruments for contacting his environment and thus becoming increasingly aware. 1, his 3 sheaths or bodies, which are his medium of contact on 3 planes: the physical body, the emotional or astral body, and the mental body. 2, on the physical plane, he has 5 senses: hearing, touch, sight, taste, and smell. The mind, the great 6th sense, which has a triple use. As yet, for the majority of men, it has but 1 use. This is the 3rd. Its first and commonest use is a gathering of the realized contacts together and their transmission as information to the ego or knower, much in the same way as the nervous system telegraphs to the brain the external contacts it makes. It is this use of the mind which produces primarily the sense of personality, which begins to fade out as the other uses become possible. Now, this is very interesting. Let's read this again. Its first and commonest use is a gathering of the realized contacts together and their transmission as information to the ego or knower. Also, the ego is also the soul, which in the same way as the nervous system telegraphs to the brain the external contacts it makes. This is very deep. Okay, a second use of the mind is the one which the first 5 means of yoga bring about: the power to transmit to the brain the thoughts, wishes, and will of the ego or soul. This brings into the personal self on the physical plane a recognition of the reality, and the sense of identification with the not self becomes steadily less. And the sense of identification with the not self becomes steadily less. So we're seeing this progression, and that takes time. And it alludes to the need for focus to be steady and as expedient as possible. From where I sit, that's how I'm reading it. The third use of the mind is its use by the soul as an organ of vision, whereby the realm of the soul itself is contacted and known. The final 3 means of yoga bring this about. The use by the soul as an organ of vision, I'm talking about the mind, whereby the realm of the soul itself is contacted and known. Okay. It should be emphasized that this is a most important fact to note. If the aspirant will regard the development and full use of the sixth sense as his immediate objective, and will bear in mind the three purposes for which it is intended, he will make rapid progress. The sense of personality will fade away and identification with the soul will ensue. This is one of the greatest of the fetters which hold the sons of men captive. It is here that the axe must be laid to the root of the tree. I think that, and it's a short day today, but we needed to get some work. We need to get some of this in, some study in. This is a lot to contemplate by itself. And, we can keep these things in mind throughout the day here. I know I certainly will as I'm going about my work today. And this is very good stuff here. The soul is an organ of vision whereby the realm of the soul itself is contacted and known. Take an axe to the prison walls, as Rumi said. So these three kind of seems like they went together nicely too. Let's not forget about this today, this group vibration, and really try to become sensitive to our environment, outside of identification with the body and personality and these things, and into the higher life for the soul. So, okay, have a good day.